Welcome! In this series of videos, we will look at the design of applications using the PowerBasic Windows compiler. Today we will look at basic design and development concepts. Much has been said of making applications intuitive. However, that's a very subjective approach, as what is intuitive to one user will not be to another. An application is only intuitive if the user has seen something like it before. With the rise of graphic user interfaces to operating systems like Windows, the approach was taken to present dialogues to users in a standard manner, making the development of intuitive systems easier. Having said that, in this form the user would expect the X at the top right of the dialog to close the window and for the exit button to exit the application. There would be nothing to stop you as a developer coding your applications to do something radically different when either of these objects are clicked. But in doing so, you run the risk of confusing the user and making them dislike your application because it is less intuitive. Applications that are in use for a long period will tend to evolve as functionality is added or amended and take on the look of a complex application. However, to those users who have been using the application during its entire lifetime, the gradual progression from a simple application to a complex one will not seem onerous. New users coming to use the application for the first time when it has become complex may need training or general guidance on how it works. To avoid spending long periods in development without releasing anything, you can develop incrementally, starting with a usable simple application or system, and having released that, move on to a more complex version. Dialogue with your users or customers is vital to ensure that you stay on track with what functionality is actually needed. This approach to development tends to be called Agile development, where you develop incrementally and release often, with each release being the minimum viable product the customer can use. It's important to note that with each release you make, the product must be functional, either fixing issues highlighted as problems in the last release, or new functionality that expands on what the product can do. It would be pointless to release a product that couldn't be used, as this would only discourage the customer from using your product. As soon as you release your first version of your new application, be prepared for users to ask questions. In large companies with dedicated help desks, they may be able to handle a deluge of user queries coming in by email, social media, and telephone. However, even the largest companies have limits, and swamping their staff with queries about your new application might not be appreciated. You may be working in a much smaller company or even be the only employee, in which case it's even more important to provide help within your application, either by help screens, help files, links to a help website, or PDF files that ship with the application. Simple guidance to your customers reduces the number of requests for help and makes it easier to identify actual application errors. The users of the application will be more confident in the product if help is provided. And most importantly, it will free up your time to fix errors and work on the next version. Limiting the number of users contacting you personally, sometimes by just materializing beside your desk with questions, is a bonus. Testing the application before release is vital, preferably by someone other than the developer or developers. If you're lucky enough to have access to a professional testing team, make use of them. Failing that, go for peer review, as it's amazing how many problems you miss by being too close to the code and how it's supposed to be used. Plan ahead and have a roadmap of where your application is going. Having a rough idea of what's going to be in future releases makes it easier to plan and resource your development work. You may not have the detail of what's going to be in applications 3 releases ahead, but that can be finalized closer to the time. And remember, it's a plan. It will change. There will be detours and pit stops especially when one of the wheels falls off your application and you need to take the time to fix it. Also, it's worth remembering that documentation doesn't have to be the first casualty of development. Your boss, should you have one, will be doubly impressed if you have both a plan and documentation. And if you don't have a boss, documentation is still useful, as there is only so much you can hold in your head. Revisiting a project you haven't touched for 6 months or a year makes you appreciate the documentation you did complete. Listen to your customers or users and accept their feedback. Feedback is a treasure map, leading you to good places, either to areas that need fixed or areas that can be enhanced to improve your product. When users report a problem, don't think of it as a problem. Think of it as an opportunity. Who knows? Some feedback may lead you down a path to an idea you never would have thought of. Document the feedback, especially the bugs, so you do not lose track. And finally, make use of the PowerBasic Forums, as they are full of working code, tips, and answers to questions asked by developers just like you. If you hit a problem, it's likely that someone else has been there before you, and the answer can be found on a simple search in the forums. That's it for today. Thank you for watching.